influyentes de la red, nos ofrecerá una clase magistral que os aseguro no tiene desperdicio alguno. Os dejo con este escritor, ilustrador norteamericano, directamente llegado de Los Ángeles, cofundador de Boing Boing y todo un referente para blogueros e incluso medios de comunicación de todo el mundo. Recordaros que hay a vuestra disposición dispositivos de traducción simultánea. Veo que algunos ya los tenéis. Los que no sabíais esta noticia, pues que sepáis que al fondo, entregando vuestro DNI, os lo facilitarán y a la salida lo devolvéis. Así podremos seguir todos un poquito mejor la clase. ¿De acuerdo? Venga, pues luego nos vemos.
Gracias por haberme invitado. Lo siento, no habla español, pero tengo traductora muy buena. Gracias. Gracias, Maria. Hello, everybody. Thank you very much for having me here today to speak to you. I've had a really great time meeting a lot of you personally and talking to you about the projects that you're working on. You've got some really great ideas, and I've learned a lot personally, and I'm really eager to share what I've learned from you here with my friends and colleagues in the United States. And I really hope that we continue to have a conversation with each other and continue to collaborate, because I think there's a lot we can learn from each other. Today what I wanted to talk about was something that really fascinates me, and that's the way that the do-it-yourself movement has really been energized by the internet. And it may not seem like such a big thing, the DIY movement, but I see huge implications, especially in the economic crisis that we're facing right now, how this can really reboot our economy around the world and make a new space for entrepreneurs and people who are creating things in their basements and garages and backyards to foster a new way of doing everything from research and design to manufacturing, marketing, production, distribution, all of it. And it's this combination of the maker movement and the internet that's making all of this possible. So I thought I would just briefly get started talking a little bit about my background. I founded Boing Boing as a print zine in 1988, and you can see, oh, let's see, can you switch it over to my slideshow, please? Okay, here we go. And it looks like it might be shifted a little bit to one side, but I guess that's okay. So these are some examples of the magazine Boing Boing that was started in 1988. It was a print magazine, and it was a very DIY, do-it-yourself endeavor. I was really excited by the idea in the late 80s that computers were becoming cheap enough that people could get them and use them in their homes. You know, artists and individuals now had access to these machines that previously were relegated to office buildings where men in white coats would take a stack of punch cards and push them through the machine and give you the results. No one was allowed to have their hands on the computer. But that all changed with the personal computer. And so when desktop publishing came along, I saw this as like a really cool development, that you could actually make your own magazine. And then with photocopy stores that were ubiquitous in town, you could take your printed output from your computer and actually print a magazine and then send it out to people. And so that was a big revelation for me, and I was so excited about it that I created this zine, and it was covering things like cyberpunk science fiction and comic books and computer technology and the kind of creative things you could do with technology. So around 1995, I was working as an editor at Wired magazine, and we started Hotwired, which was one of the first commercial websites. And at the same time, Boing Boing, the zine, was being distributed by magazine distributors, but two of them went out of business, and they ended up owing us tens of thousands of dollars, and that was money we couldn't recover because they went bankrupt. So we saw the internet as like, well, let's just try doing Boing Boing online and see what happens. and maybe people will respond to an online zine. So this is what Boing Boing looked like in 1995, and we had probably about 300 people visiting it every day, which we thought was fantastic. In 2000, I started using Blogger, which is everybody knows now is the web service that allows people to create weblogs. And when I saw that, I said, this is amazing. Here's a way that you can change your content on a web page as easy as it is to send an email to somebody. And so Boing Boing evolved, and here's an example of what it looked like in 2004. And then in 2009, this is what it looks like today. It hasn't really changed much since it became a blog, because the format of the traditional format of a blog just works so well, I think. Having posts in reverse chronological order on the front page of a site is just something that works, and has kind of evolved into that spot, and it works really well for us. I'm also the editor-in-chief of a magazine called Make, which is a magazine about the do-it-yourself revolution. We have a circulation of about 125,000 copies per issue. We have an annual event called Maker Fair. We just had one in May. We had between 70 and 75,000 people come. It's in San Mateo, California, and it's like a giant science fair where people bring their robots and rockets and giant robotic giraffes and jellyfish aquariums and all sorts of incredible stuff. And it's kind of a celebration of this do-it-yourself culture. I just wanted to show you quickly some of the books that I've written. The Happy Mutant Handbook was in 1995. It was a book about kind of the do-it-yourself culture of media. Mad Professor was a children's science book with science experiments. Rule the Web is a guide to tips and tricks for using the internet a little better. I did a couple of other books. Just to give you an idea about what Make Magazine covers, we do things like car modification, making cigar box guitars, making rockets out of water bottles, making simple robots. We even do things like genetic modification of plants, pinball machine restoration, Curlian photography. There's a picture of me with my daughter working on a small robot. I'll show you a little video of that later. Here's a few of the different projects that we have in the magazine. One of our collaborators, his name's Larry, likes to take photos of his birds. And he's got a tree with a bird feeder out his window. But he said the problem is every time a bird goes to the feeder, it always picks the hole behind the feeder so he can't get a view of the bird. So he's rigged up a little motor at the top of the bird feeder, and then he has a remote control so he can just sit at his kitchen table and turn a little joystick and make the feeder rotate so that the bird comes around and faces him. And then he has a camera actually set out there on the lawn, and he uses his joystick to press the shutter, and so he gets great pictures of birds that way. And so we put this project in the magazine, and now other people can make the same thing. Here's a fellow who he has to wake up every morning to go to work, but he hated the sound of an alarm. It really bothered him, so he made an alarm clock that looks like a pig, and at the set time, it starts cooking some strips of bacon. And so that smell of bacon is this wonderful way to wake him up in the morning as opposed to an alarm. I mean, what else, that would rouse me out of bed much better than an alarm. Here's a very simple robot project to just give you an example of some of the simpler projects that we have in Make. This is just a candy tin and an old motor and some wires from a coat hanger. And here's a little crawler toy that I made. It uses a motor that I got from a $1 fan at the 99-cent store and a paper clip to make the motor unbalanced. And I just use an Altoids tin. I sanded off the paint just to give it a different look. And I took a coat hanger and attached it to the Altoids tin with some bolts and some nuts. And there's a 1.5-volt AA battery inside there. And you can see the wires are just coming out here out of a little hole. And I've attached them to the motor here. So I'll turn it on. There it goes. I noticed that by adjusting the legs, you can make it crawl in different directions. Oh, that's stuck there.